Hello everyone and welcome. Today's video is a little different to what I've shot before. We're going to be comparing the iPhone 7 camera to the Panasonic LX100. Now, instead of comparing a smartphone to a full-frame DSLR or any DSLR for that matter, where we always know what the outcome is, I thought it would be interesting to see how the latest iPhone, which is one of the best smartphone cameras available, compares to a 2-year-old advanced compact camera. This is a far more realistic comparison. The LX100 was one of the most anticipated cameras of 2014, and one that has really dropped in price ever since. A video of this kind is mainly aimed at an enthusiast photographer who does their photography on their smartphone and wants to upgrade to the next level without buying something like a DSLR, which is a more long-term financial commitment in terms of lenses and accessories. This is someone that wants something they can buy and just shoot, that's still very portable but delivers better image quality than what you can get on a mobile device. The Panasonic LX100 was one of the best advanced compact cameras of 2014. It has a micro four thirds sensor coupled with a 24 to 75mm equivalent lens that has an aperture that ranges from f1.7 to 2.8. The sensor is 16 megapixels, though the camera only ever utilizes about 12.8 megapixels due to the way it crops out aspect ratios. It's a beautifully crafted camera with a retro classic feel. You get a nice manual aperture ring, shutter speed as well as exposure compensation dials, and a digital focus ring that can also be programmed to do other things. You also get a very nice 2764K dot electronic viewfinder. The build quality is outstanding. It's mostly made out of metal and all the dials have a very satisfying mechanical click feel to them. The iPhone 7 on the other hand is as good as you're going to get from a smartphone camera in 2017. We've got a 12 megapixel shooter with an aperture of f1.8. The focal length of this camera is 28mm. You do get an additional portrait lens that has a focal length of 56mm, but that's only available on the larger iPhone 7 Plus. Build quality is as you'd expect from Apple, well crafted from solid materials with an aluminium unibody design. Unfortunately, the camera bump stays, though it's less pronounced this time around. You also get a dual-tone LED flash. The sensor in this phone has been upgraded to a 1/3 inch Sony Exmor RS, which should result in some better image quality over its predecessor. Let's get right into the showdown. Our comparison will be based on a total of 11 criteria that we'll use to pit these devices against each other. Each round will have a winner, and the final result will be a tally of all the individual results from each round. So let's begin with the first round. Here we will compare the lens reach of both cameras and find out which is best. As mentioned before, the LX100 has a 24 to 75mm equivalent lens, and this is some serious quality glass. The lens is a DC Vario Summilux and is made by Leica. The reach you get from this is pretty decent. You're obviously not going to be doing any sports photography with this, however, you'll pretty much be able to do everything else. The lens is fast too throughout its focal range. It's just proper quality glass this, and sharpness is pretty consistent throughout. The iPhone on the other hand has a prime lens, so you're limited to a 25mm equivalent focal length. Now you can argue that you'd have more options with the iPhone 7 Plus, but what you have on the 7 Plus is actually two prime lenses, one at 28mm and the other at 56mm. Whatever you get beyond or in between is actually digital zoom. So it's different to having a 28 to 56mm zoom lens. In actual fact, it's more like having two separate prime lenses, and if you're looking to do serious photography, then digital zoom really isn't something you should be using at all for obvious reasons, especially when we're only getting a 12 megapixel readout from the sensor. So all the zooming you get on any iPhone 7 is digital zoom. For that reason, the Panasonic LX100 wins this round. Next up, we have portability and convenience, which is a pretty big deal in this showdown because a person that uses their smartphone to take photos would definitely want something that is portable and convenient in terms of size and weight. However, I must point out that on a bright day like this, it's really hard to see on this 4.7-inch display that the iPhone has. Even though I have it turned out to its brightest setting, On the Panasonic, you have the advantage with the EVF and don't have to use the back LCD. This round still undeniably goes to the iPhone though. There's no better convenience than a camera that's always with you in your pocket. Now we move on to image quality, which is most likely the single most significant factor in this comparison. The LX100 takes great photos and at times can actually compare with much larger DSLR type cameras. In terms of sharpness, this again goes to the LX100. The Leica lens is no joke. It is razor sharp, and at times it's so sharp that it feels like some post-processing has been done. The iPhone is also satisfyingly sharp. However, side by side, the LX100 wins here. The LX100 also does a better job at color reproduction, and I'm not sure if this has anything to do with a larger sensor or just the way the camera processes its images. But all in all, images are a lot more rich and vibrant in color off the Panasonic. You can also expect more recoverable highlight and shadow detail with the LX100, which is a huge plus. This round goes to the LX100. The iPhone just cannot compete with the largest sensor and Leica glass. Next up is megapixel count. The iPhone shoots 12 megapixels, whilst the Panasonic only ever uses 12.8 megapixels from a sensor that has 16 megapixels. The LX100 has a slight edge here, but not by much. In my tests, I found that I was getting 12.7 megapixel shots from the Panasonic. On the iPhone, I was getting 12.2 megapixels. A difference of 0.5 megapixels really isn't significant. For that reason, I'm going to call it a tie in this round. The LX100 technically has higher, but that is not significant enough. Moving on to low light performance, and let's just begin by saying that nighttime photography is any smartphone's enemy. Small sensors do mobile phones no justice whatsoever in the dark. I took a couple of shots last night with both cameras. To make this as fair as possible, I set a shutter speed of 1/4 of a second on both cameras, which is as low as it'd go on the iPhone. This was done at the widest aperture and shortest focal length on both cameras. And I let the camera decide what ISO to use. The iPhone went with an ISO of 777, which I'm guessing is an extended ISO value. Nevertheless, the photo came out noisy and the color reproduction was pretty poor. The image looks very washed out. Both cameras were set to auto white balance. The LX100, on the other hand, did pretty well. It went with an ISO of 640, and the image looks really good. There's minimal noise and color looks much better. We also get a shallower depth of field, which is strange since the iPhone shot at a similar f1.8 and yet yielded no bokeh whatsoever. Just to see what the Panasonic is capable of at an ISO of 200, a shutter of 1 second was used and I was able to get this very clean looking shot. I'm not sure if the phone is capable of slower shutter speeds in different applications, but in the Adobe Lightroom Mobile, the slowest it could go was 1/4 of a second. It's clear to see that the Panasonic takes this round again. In the next round, we take a look at overall video capabilities. Both cameras shoot 4K right out of the box. The iPhone does this video at a lackluster bitrate of 47 or so megabits. The LX100 does its 4K at 100 megabits, and the quality shows. It's the same story throughout all the resolutions. The LX100 has higher bitrate options. The iPhone can get better quality video through a better video recording app like Filmic Pro. However, we're looking at straight out of the box here. The iPhone surprisingly delivers better video stabilization, which is unexpected given its size. The LX100 just doesn't have good video stabilization. There's an option in the settings to turn on horizontal or vertical stabilization, but it's not any good as demonstrated in this video. Overall, the LX100 wins this round yet again because of the additional options you get with framing from the zoom lens, better dynamic range performance, and overall better video quality. With that said, let's move on to price. This will be the easiest round to determine because the iPhone is a device you already most likely have if you're a person that uses a mobile phone. That therefore equates to $0 spent there. And if you have any other phone other than the iPhone that's a flagship device, then chances are the camera is comparable. The LX100 currently goes for about $700 US, meaning that you have to spend quite a lot to get one. iPhone 7 wins this round. In the next round, we take a look at bokeh. On the LX100, the bokeh is impressive as expected from a larger sensor. Side by side, you can see that the iPhone definitely impresses, however the LX100 just blows the phone out of the water. And if you zoom in all the way to the maximum focal length, the defocusing effects you get are just incredible on the Panasonic. The The iPhone 7 Plus has a portrait mode that creates the defocused effect with artificial bokeh. It's pretty neat, however, it can be pretty inconsistent and isn't something you should be looking to use on a more serious level. This round clearly goes to the LX100. We now move on to the sensor. And yes, no matter how much people want to argue, cameras with larger sensors typically deliver better results. Bigger sensors give you better low-light performance, good bokeh, and better dynamic range performance. So even before any tests, the LX100 wins this round by default. Now let's talk more about practicality. Having a dedicated camera to take photos is not the end of the world. However, when you compare it to a camera that's on your mobile phone, which you pretty much carry with you everywhere you go, then the smartphone camera becomes more sensible. Also, on the iPhone, you can pretty much take all your photos and videos, then edit and deliver all of them to social media, your website, or blog without ever having to connect to or use a computer. With a dedicated camera, you have to worry about post-processing software like Lightroom, then getting familiar with that software. It's just a more cumbersome way of doing things. Lightroom on mobile is a lot simpler and intuitive for beginners to get used to, even though it lacks some features. iPhone 7 wins this round. In the final round, we take a look at battery life. I've been shooting all day with both devices on a full charge when we started. Right now, the iPhone has 64% left and the Panasonic shows 1 bar. The iPhone clearly wins this round. When we tally up all the results, the Panasonic wins the comparison by quite a bit. I kind of expected the iPhone to do a lot better than it did. However, the limitations of a small sensor and overall small size body are still very real in 2017. It's very difficult to deliver quality that exceeds a dedicated advanced camera in such a small package. So if you want good image and video quality, you're still better off buying a serious dedicated camera in 2017. However, keep in mind that the LX100 is an advanced compact. Standard point-and-shoot cameras these days share the same size sensors as mobile phones. So this is only worth it if you're getting a serious advanced compact like the likes of the RX100 or G7X. Otherwise, your mobile camera is as good as any standard point-and-shoot camera. The LX100 is worth it. And if you're a smartphone photographer looking for the next level upgrade in terms of image quality without getting too committed into something like a DSLR, then this is something you should definitely consider. It has really dropped in price, making it a bargain. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video was helpful to you. Please leave a like or a comment, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. Catch you folks in the next one.